It's infiltrated into our everyday use of language. We're talking about emojis. I've become so used to reading people's emotions via text.
There are risks attached and it changes so fast.
I still feel like the heart is very strong for a work situation.
Do you know I have my own emoji on Skype?
Do you actually?
You're listening to the British Council English podcast, brought to you by the world's English experts.
Perfect.
Okay, welcome everyone to this English for Life episode. Today, we're talking about a subject which maybe seems a little bit silly, but actually it's infiltrated into our everyday use of language. And so it's not that silly. We're talking about emojis. So I have Neil with me. I have Joe with me.
Hello.
I'm Nishma. Should we get straight into it?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so my first question, I'm going to start light.
Okay.
Does that mean you're going to get heavy later on?
That doesn't.
Okay.
We're going to get really philosophical later on. Do you like emojis? What is your general feeling towards emojis?
I like emojis.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't like the overuse of emojis, but I find myself using them more and more. And I think that that's a general trend. I hope you guys can agree.
I think it's like you say. I mean, you know, they've become part of everyday life, so you can't really avoid them. And like you say, overuse, yeah, can be a bit of a pain and some things like that. But everyone uses them. I use them. You know, I mean, it's depends on the platform and where you're doing it. But yeah, some of them I like, some of them I love. Do you know I have my own emoji on Skype?
Do you actually?
If you put in Neil in brackets, you get a cool guy with his feet up on a chair.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Everyone can get
Everyone
Neil.
can, yeah.
Wow.
That's
what can I say? So, you know, I mean, I like them. Yeah, absolutely.
That's like my name has never, you know, you had your names on rulers.
Yeah.
I never found my name on any ruler ever.
It's weird. I've tried every other name and it's only me. So there must be some guy in Microsoft called
Who's
Neil
Neil?
that just decided I'm going to put myself in it.
That's cool. And when we talk about emojis, are we also talking about like the reaction button emojis?
Yeah, why not? We can
Yeah.
add them in. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so general sentiments towards emoji. And the reason I ask is because people do have mixed
Yeah.
attitudes towards them. And I feel like right now, jokes aside, we are navigating this kind of flux where emojis are kind of trickling down into how we write. So for example, when I write to my parents don't use emojis.
Yeah.
And so what might happen sometimes is they'll reply, it will be an emoji-less reply, and I'll be like, why are you so angry? And they're not angry, they just haven't used like the smiling emoji. Do you know what I mean? And so I've become so used to reading people's emotions via text or via written messages through emojis. And it's even started to seep into emails at work, so in professional situations.
Yeah.
Which brings me on to my second question. What is your stance on using emojis in the professional context?
Do you want to take that one first, Neil?
Okay, I can. I think it's a little bit sensitive. I have noticed, I mean, you know, now, a few years ago, I think I would never have come across them in emails at work from managers and from people and things like that.
Yeah, just a few years ago.
Just a few years ago. It was very unusual. I had one colleague, we'll call him Peter, because that's his name, who like 10 years
Peter.
ago was using emojis every place and putting it, you know, it could be the most, whatever the email was, there were emojis in it, and it was looked on as a little bit strange and odd. But now I get emails from managers, from outside partners, from companies.
Yeah.
That's absolutely normal to have just a little smile, you know, nothing, not a stream of like, you know, multiple different signs, but a little smiley face or something like that. Absolutely normal. And it's not considered in any way inappropriate or strange. It's just, you know, like you said, it's just kind of showing a positive kind of, you know, feeling that you want to kind of finish with a, you know, a little bit of personal touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same. Like a few years ago, I would never have used emojis. And then more and more people did it. And I thought it was unprofessional. But then when you see it more, you're like, okay, well, I'll just put a smile, because it's kind of like you said, Nishma, with your parents. If you don't have that like hieroglyphics or how to interpret the text that's just written, it can seem very cold. So you put a smiley face next to it to just convey your emotion in a way that words can't, in a very, very simple way. And we do that in work now too. even on Teams, on email, it has the different reaction buttons. And I often react with the thumbs up.
Yeah.
I still feel like the heart is very strong for a work situation.
But this is what I find fascinating, because so obviously we have English language learners watching this video, but I think because it's something new, it's a whole world that everybody's kind of now navigating. And like you said, so for example, a small smiley face, like one smiley face at the end now is like, yeah, that's fine. But it could be the one smiley face with, you know, like the blushes and like the massive grin. And suddenly like that's a bit too much. Or if you had like the party hat, or I don't know, depending on who you're writing to. And someone could say, well, it's still an emoji. Like what? And so it's like, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate, okay, emojis are allowed in an email, but not all emojis, and the quantity, like there's how many should you use? What should, like, how would you advise learners to navigate that whole realm when they're working with, for example, partners who speak in English? Because also we could go into just cultural differences with different languages. But if we keep to English right now, like what would you advise students?
Well, it's an interesting point. And just to go back, because I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here and if you're going to be coming up with a question like this later, but you mentioned about the thumbs up emoji. And I think emojis to an extent are a bit like using slang, is that there are risks attached in that it changes so fast, and that there are cultural changes and there are generational changes. So for example, younger people now, Gen Z type people, don't use the thumbs up emoji to mean, yeah, that's good. They use it in an ironic sense to mean, yeah, sure, that's great.
It's almost become cold.
Yeah,
I find just a thumbs up. It's like, okay.
So, but you know, with like our colleagues at work, you were talking about Microsoft Teams, things like that. If I didn't get a thumbs up from somebody after I'd sent something, I would feel like you felt with your parents. I felt like, okay, they're not happy with what I've just sent them, or there's something wrong there. So there's differences there. So I mean, from a language learner's point of view, I think it's like I say with slang or anything else. It's like I think you have to kind of at least make an effort to be aware of where these differences might come and when it might be appropriate, when it might not be appropriate. You said a heart's maybe too much. Maybe that's, you know, maybe sending that to your friend on WhatsApp or something when they've just sent you a photo is great, but sending it to somebody in work who sent you I don't know.
How do you, because I would say, like, I quite enjoy receiving hearts at work.
Really?
Yeah. But so like how, is it just a personal thing? How do we,
Got be some of that too, I guess. Yeah.
I think it depends on what the content of the email is. And like within everything, we always have to understand it in the context of where it's happening. Yeah. So if someone just says something quite plain and then someone else responds with a heart, that's when I think it's a bit too much. But if you've like done a huge 6-month project and you're sharing the results from that, and then someone responds with the heart, okay, then that's nice to receive because, you know, it has been a labor of love and you are looking for that recognition from your colleagues as well. Yeah. I mean, it's on Teams for a reason. Yeah. Like they developed that and they decided to put it on. But in terms of navigating it for people who are learning English, I would say to look at the company that's sending it to you and understand their context and kind of respond in kind. So if they're using a few emojis, you can use a few emojis. If they're not using any emojis, maybe don't use any, or maybe just use one or two if you really want to, you know, put that personal touch on it.
I think that's a very good point, because when we're teaching, like, for example, business writing, and, you know, the fact that you've got different cultural expectations when you're writing to people from different countries and things like that. And, you know, Anglo kind of approach tends to go very, very friendly, very informal quite quickly. And it's like, hi, you know, hi Nishma, hi Joe, Neil. And it's this, what you just said, exactly that. It's kind of being aware of how the other person is responding and acting and kind of, you know, adapting to that. Yeah. Because I have colleagues, like you were saying, who do put hearts on things a lot. And therefore, I find myself putting hearts on their things, although it wouldn't be natural to me, but because they do it, you know, it's okay. It's so, true. You know, so I just want to kind of respond in kind, like you said.
And I think this kind of touches on, for those of you listening, the British Council is present in like 140 countries around the world. So we have colleagues who live everywhere around the world, and it's an international organization, and many of you maybe work for international organizations or work with people who live in different countries. And it's interesting because it kind of touches on intercultural fluency. Emojis have seeped into that, you know, like in France, I live in France, emojis are less of a thing professionally.
Really?
Yeah, like professionally. The French, I find it's a lot more, you'll be a lot less informal in professional contexts. So emails, you know, even the fact that you have the vous voir and the tutoir, like in English, we only have one form of saying you, and it's just you. Like in Italian, lei, tu. And so the fact that you would vous voir people already, it's setting another tone. It's like we're formal. Emojis don't have a place in this land, you know? But yet you're also working with people who are, in the UK, it is more informal. So it's like, it's interesting how it touches, I find, on also intercultural fluency.
Definitely.
Whereas I live in Italy, and even though in Italian there is that two different levels of formality, most people in work still just use tu. They don't use lei. And so a lot of the responses would be more warm and more informal. Yeah. And so a lot of my Italian colleagues use more emojis than I would.
Oh, interesting. Super interesting. Huh. Okay. What's it like in Slovakia?
I don't get, there's not so many in my experience with the people I deal with. It's less. But we do also have the same two levels of formality. But again, like once you know somebody, once you're working with somebody, it's all at the less formal level.
Okay.
But in an outside context, when you're dealing with somebody that you're not in contact with regularly, it stays at a higher formal level all the way through. It takes a long, long time before it filters down to the equivalent of tu.
Yeah. Okay. I did. So I'm not going to spring this on you. I did give you this question beforehand because maybe it's a bit difficult to think of. But have you ever received an email or a text message or a WhatsApp message? So not necessarily in a professional context, could be in a personal context, but where there's been a use of emoji and your reaction has been like, that's inappropriate.
Yeah. Well, it's slightly rude though. Some of the uses.
It's okay. We can be slightly rude. I think
some of the uses of emojis are slightly rude, and especially people older than ourselves may not understand the full connotations of the emojis they're using. Yeah. My mother-in-law sent the water drops emoji because I think they were having it was a hot day. They were having a water fight or something, but I don't know if you want to explain what that means or if we should just leave it there.
Look it up.
Maybe you can Google it. Yeah. Squirt emoji.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a few of those. I can't think of an inappropriate one that I've received, but I have found myself having to look some up because I'm really not sure what they meant. And I've got,
true.
And somebody sent me something. I've gone, okay, I really don't know what you mean by that, or I'm supposed to respond.
It's like, so one new one that came in that I had to look up was the skull.
Yes, I was going to mention that one too because I text my nephews. Yeah, and. Like as Neil was saying earlier on, like thumbs up is not cool anymore. I think is it this one? The okay emoji. That's the skull emoji has replaced the crying eyes emoji.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so not cool.
And it's indicative of age.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
You know?
And I read a great article on that just last month about the fact that, really younger people like teen people kind of cringing at their parents' use of emojis because they're like slathering their messages with all these emojis and they're using the wrong ones. Yeah. And it's like you're saying exactly.
So interesting. I want to read that.
Yeah. It's a language that has evolved. It's interesting because so in some of our other podcasts, you will hear people talking about how language, I really like this, how language evolves based on how it's like reality. Yeah. Right? So and it's almost like that is what's happening with emojis, like the meaning is evolving constantly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, when you looked up skull, what did you find? Because I had my theory about that, but I never actually looked it up.
Dying of laughter. Yeah. They're dead. So funny they're dead.
Yeah. Because the language has evolved so that the visual representation of that language changed.
True. I'm dead. And one that I have never figured out, and I still don't know how to use it, so actually any insight you could provide, I'd be very grateful for, is the upside down smile. You know where they're like smile, it's like an upside down Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
What is that?
I haven't looked that one up.
I haven't looked it up, but I do use it sometimes.
Okay.
But to prepare for this podcast, I was talking to my friend about it.
Yeah.
Hi, Anusia. And she actually is a visual communicator. So she gave me a really good insight into that. And I think that this might be the time that I use it, is that sometimes we communicate things when we don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we communicate things, like I could be trying to communicate one thing and then you understand another thing, like what happened with my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes when I don't know what to respond to something, like just, like, and in language, there are no words for it. So I just put upside down smiley face.
So that will show the person that you're kind of a bit confused.
Yeah, it's like, just, I'm responding, but,
but I don't really
you can
know.
interpret it the way that you want to interpret it.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
That's how I use it anyway.
Okay. And I have one thing. So one thing I did want to ask you. So imagine you're in a lesson. And so we're talking about how emojis are this whole new landscape of language that students need to navigate in their own language, but then also when in English, right? Mm-hmm. As we said, there's different cultures use them differently. What would be your 101 kind of piece of advice, lesson and let's make it specific to business English students? Actually, do we want to make it specific? Let's make business students, and Neil, you go with business students.
Okay, sure.
And Joe, you go with a general student.
Okay.
My piece of advice would actually be the same one that we mentioned earlier, which is, be conscious and aware of how people communicate with you and respond in kind. Because I think that's, whether it's just simple things like actual text, how people say hi and how people say cheers or bye or stuff like that, or it's emojis. So I think it's, you always run the risk, whether it's from language or whether it's from like visual representation like emojis, of not alienating, but like maybe not responding, giving somebody the wrong impression when they come back. If they come on really friendly and really positive in this way, and you reply in a completely different way, it just puts that distance between you. So I would say just to focus on, not to initiate. I wouldn't say the first time you send somebody a business email, end it with, bye, Neil, and then 37 emojis along the bottom.
Yeah.
But just to be conscious of it, if it does pop up, if they're sending you a message, a chat message or WhatsApp or an email, and if they do it, then I think it's nice to just kind of, respond in kind.
Yeah. It kind of actually just seems like a part of a wider soft skill of being able to read the room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was kind of my tip for a general audience as well. Like have the audience in mind.
Yeah.
Like, especially emojis change with age. Mm-hmm. So think about like what age group you're sending that emoji to, and then maybe look some of the emojis up that you're not sure about. If you're not like 100% sure that there's some emojis okay to use with this age group, be it somebody older or somebody younger than you, look it up. There's a website called Emojipedia. I think you can look it up there, and sometimes it gives you an explanation of.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Of what the emoji means.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess another thing that follows on from that would be another piece of advice that goes for writing as well as anything else, but like keep it simple. Don't go into the splash emojis or the skulls or the whatever, or various, vegetables or anything like that. Keep it to simple things that are like, puzzled face, happy face or stuff like that until you're more confident about kind of navigating it.
Yeah. Keep experiments to your close social circle.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure, check with somebody else.
Yeah.
Good advice.
I love it. Amazing. Okay. Well, I'm pretty happy with what we've covered over emojis. If you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We have so much content coming out for you guys to help you improve your English in so many different spheres of life. And we'll see you again very soon for our next episode. Thank you so much, Joe and Neil.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. We really care about your English, so if you like this episode, make sure you subscribe because we've got lots more great content for you to explore.